All right, y'all. 2023 top 30 albums list. Let's get to it. So 2023, it started out a little slow, in my opinion, and I really wasn't loving the energy of the year until closer to the midpoint, to keep it a buck, especially given that it was hip hop's 50th birthday. But these were 30 albums that I wanted to highlight. Now, of course, I did not get to hear everything this year, and if I don't have your top album listed, it's gonna be okay. I promise. And if you need to, take some deep breaths, get a water. But real quick, I do want to begin with the honorable mentions. These were albums that almost made my list. Yes, they were so close. Starting with Rome Streetz' Noise Candy 5, Mayhem Loren's Champagne for Breakfast, Chase Fetty's Blender Talk, Rembrandt 2 Metal Canvas. Also, Kenny Money's Blue Money Deluxe, Lloyd Banks' Kati 3, Shay Nor's Nor or Never, Conway Won't He Do It, and Juicy J's Mental Chillness. Yeah, I know there's some more, but I gotta get into this top 30. Starting at number 30, I have Static Selecta's Round Trip. So this was a very solid compilation that had a variety of dope MCs, both from the new and old school. The production was on the jazzy boom bap side, and it was mostly good, but I did find some of the instrumentals to be a bit bland on the back end. Although I did want to highlight Round Trip because there is a lot of great rapping throughout, and it starts out really strong. At number 29, I have Vinnie Pases, All Are Guests in the House of God. Sure, the cover art, it's scary, and it's likely to scare away the hoes. And while we are at it, the demonic sounding skits throughout, they were a bit too much. But despite those things, the production is consistently good throughout. Vinny's energy level was aggressive as always. I'd say his hook game improved. And there are a lot of dope features. For number 28, I have 2 Chains and Lil Wayne's Welcome to Collard Grove. This was a fun and entertaining listen from 2 of Southern rap's most prolific. While Wayne didn't really disappoint, I thought 2 Chains was the MVP. The production was solid all the way through, and what I enjoyed most was the balance between boom bap, trap, the New Orleans bounce sound, and just slower, soulful bangers. For number 27, I have Mike and Wiki and the Alchemist's Faith is a Rock. Now, abstract rap, it's not one of my most listened to subgenres, but I do feel this was one of the better releases in that sphere in 2023. Yes, I know that Mike's solo album received a lot of praise, but I actually didn't get to hear the album. So I think the main reason why I'm recommending this project is because Alchemist was manning the boards. But in fairness, Wiki and Mike are no slouches as MCs, especially Wiki, who impressed me the most. At number 26, I have Planet Asia's Sardines, produced by the legendary Apollo Brown. And this was their follow-up to the Anchovies release. And I'd have to say it's a worthy sequel to that. Planet Asia did his thing lyrically as expected, and Apollo Brown supplied him with very classy, soulful backdrops, some of which were impeccably produced. So the rapping, it was on point. And while I did enjoy the production, I could have used slightly punchier instrumentals at times, but as a whole, this was definitely one to check out if you like collaborations from these two. At number 25, I have Odyssey's To What End. So this album, it was my first time listening to Odyssey at all, and I'd have to say, I came away from it pleased. One thing that instantly stood out was the style of production, which was very jazzy, soulful, and uplifting. I believe there was a live band at times. And Odyssey is a competent lyricist who will give you those mature and insightful kind of bars. So at the end of the day, it was a refreshing listen that I'm glad that I pressed play on. Number 24, I have Currency and JD's for Motivational Use Only Volume 1. Now, this could probably be described as an EP. It's just 7 songs, but that's a Currency project for you. But I found this to be a fun listen with some soulful bangers produced by JD. Yeah, the production was pretty lively throughout, which was a nice change in pace for Spitta. Number 23, I have Nas Magic 2. Sure, this album, it wasn't flawless or as technically well done as other Nas and hit projects, but it was surely a fun and enjoyable listen from top to bottom, especially for the summer. But I'm also someone who likes flows and vibes, sometimes just as much as I do dissecting lyrics. At number 22, I have El Camino's They Spit on Jesus. For starters, the cover art, it's horrible and it's disrespectful as fuck. But I still found this to be a good album in 2023. And it's likely El Camino's most complete sounding project to date, as it didn't give off the EP or mixtape vibes that his past works tend to do. And the production was varied and the features were on point throughout. So yeah, go listen to this despite this hideous cover. For number 21, I have BigXthaPlug-Amar Deluxe. This was a hard-hitting project from the up-and-coming Dallas rapper. Now, I first learned of him from that Mexican OT's album, and I decided to give it a spin, and what I found was a project with some southern bangers and confident, bold flows. The samples were also very standout. You know, he's not what some would call lyrical, but he can tell a story and rap confidently on every track. At number 20, I have Boldy James's Prisoner of Circumstance. So like the Currency project, this likely could be dubbed as an EP too. But it was my favorite of the two that Boldy released this year. For this one, Boldy teamed up with the producer Chan Hayes, and the end result was a very soulful product, probably more soulful than any recent Boldy drop. And Chan Hayes laced Boldy with a batch of dusty, dreamy soundscapes that really complemented Boldy's vivid tales and reflections. For number 19, I have RJ Payne's My Life is a Movie 2. This was another year where RJ Payne displayed his gift for that cinematic storytelling. Now, of the three that he released, I feel My Life is a Movie 2 was the best. This time around, Payne reunited with P.A. Dre to paint this vivid portrait of the city of Philly. It was all things Philly. The production was soulful and lush, and it fit Payne's storytelling like a glove. At number 18, I have Paul Wall and Termanology-Start, Finish, Repeat. And who would have thought a couple years back that this duo would have gelled so well together? I feel Start, Finish, Repeat is on par with last year's release in terms of quality, but it might be slightly better. You had production from the likes of Static Selecta, Large Pro, Diamond D, Buck Wild, J.R. Swift's, and Cartoon Beats. The end result was a lyrical trill fest, and I think there's something really refreshing about hearing Paul Wall over boom bap. For number 17, I have Billy Woods' Maps. So Billy Woods has been one of the primary figures of abstract rap in recent years. He's not an artist that I would listen to every day, but alongside producer Kenny Siegel here, they cooked up a very dope jazz rap album. Of course, Billy Woods delivered with the detailed storytelling, the anecdotes, and just obscure references that you don't get from the average MC. But what I like most about this project was that it just came off as a great jazz rap album overall. At number 16, I have Mickey Diamond's Capital Gains. This was one of many consistent releases from the Detroit underground favorite. Mickey Diamond also had this insanely prolific year. For this record, he joined forces with the slept-on producer Camouflage Monk, and throughout this 10-track project, you had witty, boastful bars over crunchy, hypnotic sound. While Mickey did his thing vocally, I think this album also showcased Camouflage Monk's skills as a producer. For number 15, I have DJ Muggs' Soul Assassins 3, which is likely the best compilation album to drop this year. And I do think that it's slightly better than his Soul Assassins 2 from way back when. If this is the final installment of the series, then I feel Muggs ended the trilogy on a high note. There was a lot of great rapping featured, both old and new. Now, the production was not nearly as dark as prior Muggs releases, and maybe not quite as ear-grabbing either, but on it, Muggs displayed why he is still such a revered and influential producer in traditional and underground rap sphere. At number 14, I have Dawn Tripp's 1207 James Street. So I did find it a little challenging to narrow down my favorite Dawn Tripp release out of the 12 this year, but this one might be it. It's 12 tracks of raw, honest introspection over really solid beats from DT to Kid. Now, Don't Trip, he's no stranger to getting deeply personal on his records, but this one was easily his most autobiographical yet. The production was fairly dark and somber, which really complemented Trip's survivalist mind state. So if you like country rap tunes, give this a spin. At number 13, I have Mick Jenkins, The Patience. I'm certainly not an expert on this Chicago rapper's catalog, but I think this might be his most consistent, cohesive release since Waves. In terms of the production, there were no misses. There was enough variation sonically, which was a plus. And vocally, Mick expressed a lot of emotion. You could just hear more urgency to his delivery, which is also something that I value. It just flowed well from front to back with no skips, and the features were pretty standout. For number 12, I have Jeezy's I Might Forgive, but I Don't Forget. Okay, so I typically don't love listening to 29 tracks from artists, even the artists who I love. But somehow, some way, Jeezy managed to pull off a pretty solid double album. In the first half, we got more traditional bangers that we are accustomed to from the Snowman. That being said, the first half, it just wasn't nearly as strong or as cohesive as the second half being produced entirely by the Justice League. And man, did the Justice League lace this trap icon with some immaculately produced tracks. I do think this album was a bit overlooked given its length, and also because Jeezy's buzz just isn't the same as it once was in the 2000s, but I still feel this had a lot of high highs and it has some smooth motivational records for the streets. At number 11, I have Westside Gunn's And Then You Pray For Me. Okay, this was easily Westside Gunn's most polarizing album to date. I know a lot of people in the comment section for my review expressed their dissatisfaction with this album, and while it wasn't perfect, I did find it still to be an enjoyable release with very high replay value. And even though I'll agree that Westside Gunn did not sound good on trap beats, his guests on this album sure did. Yeah, the album was chaotic, a bit messy, but at the same time, to me, it was entertaining, and some of the tracks ended up being my most played throughout the year. But for some context, I'm also someone who likes street rap, stuff that dope boys may like, stuff that people might consider ignorant. I can't help it. I'm sometimes that guy. So while his execution wasn't flawless, I can't understand what Westside Gunn was aiming for on this project. For number 10, I have Jae Skeese-Abolished Uncertainties. So on this album, this Buffalo MC checked off quite a few boxes for me. This project had bangers, your lyrical head nodding tracks. It had those melodic moments as well as some soulful introspective ones. The songwriting was there as well, as Jae Skeese has some cool conceptual tracks. The production was also varied enough to keep things interesting. And he experimented with different flows, and his delivery kept me engaged. Number 9, I have Rome Streetz' Wasn't Built in a Day, produced by Big Ghost. So out of the two Rome Streetz drops in 2023, this was the better one in my eyes. Big Ghost was in his bag on the production tip, and DJ Swab's scratches were executed flawlessly. It had an ideal runtime of just 11 tracks, and Rome Streetz was really bodying all these beats. If you can appreciate that type of raw criminology New York rap, this will likely be in your top list as well. At number 8, I have Larry June and the Alchemist-The The Great Escape. So initially, I had gone back and forth between this and Night Shift, produced by Carter. Although after revisiting The Great Escape during the past couple of days, it became clear to me that this is a top 10 album of 2023. My only very slight criticism that still exists is I found some of the energy to be a tad bit low at times. But The Alchemist, I think, made up for it with some nearly flawless production. And this album, it was a change in pace stylistically for Larry June, as I feel he stepped into the Alchemist's world more so. It's luxury rap at its finest in 2023, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many beats this year better than songs like 89 Earthquake and Palisades, California. At number 7, I have Nick Grant's Sunday Dinner. Now, Nick Grant has been criminally underrated since he stepped on the scene in 2017, but none of his projects have been as good as Sunday Dinner. To keep it a buck, I do slightly regret that I did not do a full review of his project when it dropped, but it had quietly been one of my favorite releases of 2023. There was a lot of social commentary embedded in this project, as well as Nick just flexing his sharp wit as a lyricist. There was a soulful, almost homegrown feel to the production. It was laid back, but bouncy enough. At the end of the day, it's a highly recommended project, and I would not be mad if someone had this as their #1 pick of the year. For number 6, I have Lloyd Banks' Halloween Havoc 4. So while I really thought Cudi 3 was a strong project that showed Banks' depth as an artist, Halloween Havoc 4 just had more replay value for me. While Banks' pen is always razor sharp, I really feel he outdid himself with this one, really giving fans some of his most quote-worthy, rewind-worthy bars in recent memory, and also giving us 3 verses per song. Of course, Banks still had his solemn, reflective tracks like we had gotten on Cudi. But I feel this album is an essential listen for fans of that gritty, cold corner style of hip-hop. At number 5, I have Elzhi-Heavy Vibrato, produced by Oh No. So out of the 30 releases that I have listed, I'd say this was the most lyrical project from a technical perspective. Now, if you know that Elzhi has been dropping dope projects for years now, but this new one, Heavy Vibrato, was a refreshing listen in 2023. It was produced entirely by Oh No, Madlib's brother, who crafted up some of the best jazz rap soundscapes all year. And there was heavy use of xylophones, bells, vibraphones. So for those who enjoy those jazzy elements that were very common in the mid-90s, you will likely love this production as much as I did. For number 4, I have Ransom's Directors Cut 4. So since about 2020, Ransom has demonstrated consistently why he is one of the coldest on the mic, especially if you like those lyrical street scriptures. And whenever Ran and Craven join forces, there's been fireworks. And thankfully on Director's Cut 4, the two carry on tradition. Ransom was rapping like he had a point to prove and possibly some lives to save. And Craven once again supplied an array of attractive soul drops. At number 3, I have Key Glock's Glock-Glockoma 2, the Deluxe. Okay, I know for some, this album lacks lyrical substance and it may be dismissed as a result. But personally for me, I like balance, I like different regional sounds, and I'm a fan of Memphis trap. So I found this Key Glock project to be one of the most enjoyable listens of the year. This was the first full-length Key Glock solo since Dolph's passing, and it was evident that Glock rose to the occasion. Key Glock is one of the coolest cats in the game, and he is a clever rapper in his own right, in his own lane. There were bangers and anthems left and right, and the production, it has some of the finest trap instrumentals you heard all year. At number 2, I have Killer Mike's Michael. Okay, so I know that many mainstream publications had ranked this album high on a list, but I actually can't be mad at them because the album's actually that good. To be honest, I hadn't loved any of the recent Killer Mike solo projects or his Run the Jewels material nearly as much as I did this album. Aside from the production being crisp and top-notch all the way through, I also really liked how Mike gave us more introspection on this record, even bearing his soul at times. The features were great and the beats were eclectic, and I tend to be a sucker for that Southern soul gospel sound, and that was in abundance on this release. Sonically, it felt more like a return to the Dungeon Family sound, that old school Atlanta sound, which I prefer any day over the Run the Jewels aesthetic. Although don't get me wrong, the Run the Jewels stuff objectively is pretty good, but it just doesn't hit quite the same for me. And finally, at number 1, I have Nasir Jones's Magic 3. To me, Nas was the MVP all of this year. Although Magic 2 was a fun project, Magic 3 was the more cohesive and lyrically focused from Nas since KD3. Of course, this album ended the Magic trilogy, and it also marked the conclusion of Nas and Hit Boy collaborations for the time being. And I couldn't think of a better way for the two to close out their successful streak than with this release. Out of their albums since 2020, I would rank KD3 as my favorite, and I would follow that up with Magic 3. This album was so special because I feel it truly embodies Nas's overall philosophy since he came in the rap game, and that was to be a product of the old school and the newest of the new. So those were my top 30 rap albums of this year. I'm curious to know what your top picks would be in the comment section. Drop them. But I'm signing out. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. As always, it's peace and blessings. One.